Okay. And then this here too. Right, everybody. Welcome. Slowly people starting to join. As always, it has been a while since I streamed. Of course, did I stream last week? I think I streamed, but only... No, it has been 20 days. Ah, nice. Okay. I hope everybody's joining in at least, and people are finding me. I don't know what I'm going to do. The challenge is basically nobody submitted, nobody joined, nobody did anything. So I think I'm gonna skip that. I don't know. And this is still working. Nice. And we don't have any feedback stuff yet because I was late with opening the queue, but I hope that people are gonna join in as soon as they see that the stream is live. It's like there's remarkably few people online, but that's not true because it's a different channel. There's 161 people online. I'm posting soon. Cool. Other than that, I mean, I have the production that I can work on, and we can do that while we wait for people to join and submit their stuff. This is the production that we started, or that we worked on the last time, I think. Production of a new massive project. Where was I then? Oh, this was the very long... Oh yeah, that's the last stream. Fairly early on in the beginning of the project. We're now in the second part. We're working more on the full-on part as opposed to the progressive part. Essentially what this is going to be, this project, is it's going to be a Psytrance track with a relatively long intro, as you can see, like over 2-minute intro. And then there's going to be a first progressive Psytrance track, which is then going to transition throughout this fairly long break, again, like 2-minute break. And then it's going to go into a more full-on type of track. So it's essentially 2 tracks crushed into one project and put together, like mixed together via break. And that's the whole point. Is trying to have something that in a DJ set is a essentially undetectable transition between 141 BPM progressive style and then the more full-on style that we have over here. So that's what we're going to get into. That's what we're going to be making. Hello, MindB. How are you doing? Welcome. All right, I do see challenge submission. Is this for the uptempo challenge? Because this person just messaged me that they didn't know where to submit, so I told them to read over here, and it looks like they still went to the wrong channel. which is interesting because it's the feedback on stream channel here. Just please don't use the submission channel feedback on stream for anything other than submitting. That's reading comprehension. That has nothing to do with Discord. I'm good, and you? I'm doing well. Chill, relaxed week at work. Not much to do because there's it's just August and people are still on vacation, so there's no events happening yet. Can't open the link. Read this text, and then you're gonna know what it says. I don't have access to. Read this text, everything from here up until here, and then you're gonna know exactly how to get access to the channel that you need to submit in. It's not being, I'm sorry, it's not being bad at Discord. This is just, you read that, it should be very clear what it says, how to get there. I'm ahead of festival in 4 days. Nice, nice, amazing. Festivals are the things I also look forward to nowadays. And the last few years have really been, I decided to just, instead of going like on vacation, I would prefer, instead of one big vacation, to just go to 2 like festivals, maybe. This year I only could do 1, unfortunately. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice having something to look forward to. I'm sorry, Dharma, that I'm a little bit picky here, but this is just, you just have to read. Bro, I can't open that. Literally, just react below for access to feedback channels. You just react below here, and then you get access to the, it says access. And you see 100 people having reacted here, right? And then you click on feedback on stream and it works. It has worked for 100 people, it should work for you as well. I did. Are you here? It doesn't say you're online. Here you are. But if I go here, why is it not? There you are. Yeah, now it should be working. When I react, open the challenge page. This isn't the challenge, this is feedback. The challenge is one thing, and then feedback is another thing. So there are 2 different channels, there are 2 different things. There we are. Okay. Cool. Do I need to write that more clearly? The rules segment? Like, does this, can I word this better? One thing I can do is put in the actual emote that you need to use, which is this guy. I react with the rock emoji. Yeah, okay. So this should clear it up. I thought the 100 plus people that would be there would be enough. It's like an accept, right? Seems it works only with the check. Yes, it is designed that way. It's like accepting the terms of the rules. Anyway, since we're doing feedback now, I'm going to open these guys up, and we're gonna have a listen to Dharma Das with no track. The reason why you don't have any track here, why there's no track showing, is because you uploaded a private track, which means that this URL doesn't work. In order to share a private track, you have to go to the track. Let's say that I go to one of my old private tracks here, even older. Where is this? This guy. You can see private, so there's a little lock on there. If I go here, you can see there's a URL here. And then if I go here, there's another URL that has a lot more stuff. If you share the URL with the more stuff, that one is going to work, as opposed to the main URL that you have over here. Because it's private, I don't have access to private URLs. So please update the URL here. Do you guys want to do a new challenge still, by the way, since we did not have any participants in the last one? Because I feel like if I keep spinning the wheel for fewer and fewer people in the challenge, that's not something that I actually, would like to do. So I would love to do more challenges, but I would like to know that people actually join in. You made it public. Okay. Let's see. VXXX final Dharma Das.
It's my real secret that I strip away the layers and layers of ego. The protective security blanket that shelters you all.
Could be a little bit clearer on the vocals. Giving it a little bit more space in the mix, giving it a little bit more space in the high frequencies. That bass sounded strange for a second.
Of his own deep dreamscape.
Did the BPM change here on the drop? Looks like there's a little bit of bleeding into bass notes here and here. It's hard to tell with everything that you have going on in the very intro, but that's just how the track works, I guess, the structure of the track. A lot of moments where you're doing kick rolls, and I feel like every time I start to get into the vibe and I start bobbing my head, the kick disagrees with me and goes to different places. An actual fill every once in a while would also be nice, where you just actually stop the kick and bass playing. Yeah, definitely I have some bleeding between bass notes here. But the kick seems pretty okay, so I feel like you just LFO to this as opposed to actually resampling. You're only doing feedback on Psytrance? No. I do feedback on everything. Anything you want. don't see why you feel the need, why you decided to fill up every fill with bass note. Like sometimes give it a bar of an actual stop and then have the kick and bass come in again. Very strong snap here on that bass line because of the side chaining. Bass is fairly loud for the kick drum. Strange transition there to the rolling bass towards the end. I don't like that. I will keep this part fully sliding and maybe do something more with like a groove in the slide if you want to vary it a bit more. As opposed to just cut one bass line, here's another bass line for 2 bars and then we go back to it. This is very rough here, both bass lines are playing. This sounds really bad. I'm trying to somehow make my track sound better, but my ears are already dead. I'd love to hear you taking it. So yeah, just submit it to the queue and then you're probably going to be the next in line if you submit quickly. This is the very first moment where you have a little bit of a flow in the track, in the sense that there's like significantly fewer elements in here, so it goes lower energy, and this is the outro of the track. So the rest of the track sounds fairly flat, in the sense that you always have the same amount of elements going on and the same amount of stuff going on. Make sure that you have a fade out to it as well. But the other thing that I hear is that it feels like there's a little bit too much going on, or maybe it is a thing of the depth of the mix, so to say, in the sense that the atmosphere sounds pretty upfront, all of the backing stuff sounds pretty upfront, and that combination of kind of continuous flow and always full of elements feels like there's the track doesn't really evolve in any way. It just there's this intro, and then the kick and bass starts to play, and there's, oh, here's this amount of sequences and stuff and drums and whatever, and it just continues on for basically the whole track, I would say. The track is done here, the rest I haven't finished. Thank you for the feedback. Honestly, you're already doing too much, in my opinion. You're already at 8 minutes. So what I would probably do is I would turn that sliding bass part at the end into a normal outro with just rolling bass, and keep the sliding bass to be that special in the center moment of the track, and also keep that area just on its own and just sliding bass. Make some new sounds for that, make something really completely new for that area so that it stands out of the track. And then you're gonna have like one rolling bass drop, a smaller sliding bass drop, and then another rolling bass drop again. And you use elements between drop 1 and 3 and something new between drop 2. And then you can make the break between drop 1 and 2 a little bit longer. And that should be all for like a structure. I think that would be better than trying to write another break behind this and then trying to maybe like write another drop to it, and then it will get you to a much longer track length. Unless you're also, I should be putting an asterisk on that because the track that I'm writing here is 18 minutes long. But also technically here, it is just 2 tracks put together, with a 1, 2, 3 drop structure here, and a 1, 2, 3 drop structure over here. So basically this is twice a very standard kind of structure, with a break in between, kind of bridging the gap. That is something that you could do if that is something that you're interested in. And to stop so many of the kick rolls. Yeah, there's more things that I said, of course, doing the playthrough of the track as well, but I just wanted to add a little bit more to that, I guess, at the end. Sorry, it's a remix that I wanted to submit, so it's a no-go for me. That's unfortunate. If you have a new one or a different track, I can always listen to that. And Nevia, hello, welcome to the stream. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, we don't have any other submissions then. Very slow stream today. But that's okay. I think I'm just gonna produce for a little bit and have you guys submit more and more and more if you want to. Honestly, I've been thinking about slowing down stuff around the channel anyway. So I don't really mind it. I think now having the challenge, nobody participate in the challenge, is another good sign that what I was trying to do maybe with the channel in making it a little bit more interactive just doesn't work at my scale. Like there's not gonna be enough people submitting and participating for it to really be enjoyable even for the other people watching. So other things could probably be better for me. And the other thing that is really playing a role in it, now that I have a full-time job and I'm just doing this YouTube thing on the side, I've done it now for a couple of months where I'm combining both, and I'm trying to, you know, keep a regular output of shorts, keep a regular output of videos. But even that, I don't feel like I want to continue doing that because I just don't care anymore, or not enough actually. And I want to focus maybe more on creative things and like actually working more on music. And one of things that I can just maybe put out every once in a while and spending a bit more time on maybe per video finding an interesting topic as opposed to just a 10-minute tutorial of, hey, this is how you make this patch and this is how you make that thing. But then you can imagine that, okay, that maybe once a month that there's a video coming out or something like that, maybe even less. Honestly, another thing is that I've been doing it for 5+ years now, YouTube, and it's clear that it wasn't the most, that it was never going to be the most stable of careers, but it was never going to get to a point where I could just fully commit and fully live off of it. Even though I did that for 2 years, it wasn't really like I wasn't making so much money that I was having fun or anything. And other than that, or I was having fun with the work, but not with the result of the work, I should say. Like, don't get me wrong, I like making videos, I like making content, it's also a creative thing in the same way that just music production itself is creative. So I don't mind it, but uh, it's just that the Psytrance target audience is not big enough to sustain a full-time living on it. Content creation, even with a lot of effort, still needs a dash of luck. Depends on your definition of luck. I agree with you, but probably not in the way that you think. In the sense that when people discuss content creation and the luck that is involved, they often say that, oh, you just have to get lucky that the algorithm picks you. But that's not the case. Because what I've always learned, and I don't remember who said this, but there was a YouTuber who said this, anytime you hear the word algorithm, you should replace that with the word audience. Because at the end of the day, all that the algorithm does is it just takes content that exists in the database of all content on YouTube and it feeds it to all of the people that are watching. So it's at the end of the day, it's the people that are watching that are deciding on like, oh, I'm going to watch this, I'm going to invest my time in this, I'm gonna give it watch time, and therefore it gets recommended more and more and more. So at the end of the day, you're not trying to influence like the luck of the algorithm or anything like that. You're trying to influence or you're not even trying to influence in a way. You're trying to get the right stuff for the audience. And that is just, you have to do like market research, and you have to look out what other people are doing, look at what is working, look at what is not working, that kind of stuff. And the luck that is involved in doing that is being lucky enough to be able to be in a position to do that for a long enough amount of time that you can succeed. Because at the end of the day, when I look at my YouTube channel now, I should say that I've succeeded with YouTube, in the sense that for the niche that I have, for the very, very small group of people that are interested in Psytrance production that I have built my fan base around, I've done very, very well, right? There's many, I'm one of the biggest channels in the Psytrance production scene behind Dash Glitch and Collective Intelligence. And both of those guys started way before COVID, and I started with the start of COVID. I think Dash was already doing stuff for like 4 or 5 years before I ever did anything content-wise. So I was lucky that I was in the position that I could just, I guess, first of all, that COVID happened, that I was in my house all day, and that really I had nothing to do. And that was the initial spark that gave me enough love for content creation that I was able to continue doing it. And then after that, that I always had just enough time and willpower to make content in a way that it came out in a regular enough schedule that people like were constantly thinking about you, right? That is at the end of the day, one of the things that does drive new traffic back to you is that consistency. Like if I post a short every day for, like I did every day for 3 years, I believe. And that was the moment that my channel grew the most. And now I'm doing every other day. That is still working. But there's going to be a point, right? If I do once a month, then you're not going to be thinking about me for a month after you see my short, right? But if I were able to, I did for a while also do 2 shorts a day. For maybe half a year I did that. And in thereof, I didn't really see too much growth from that. But I could see that it was better to do that, right? Because the numbers just go up. Praise God and thank Him for COVID. I did not make COVID. I just took advantage of the situation that I found myself in. and look at all kinds of analytics, but at least you still need an initial hit of luck that kicks the snowball in a sense. Yeah, not, I mean, no, I think I disagree. I don't think at the on the YouTube side that there's luck involved. There's more your personal circumstance allowing you to be able to do YouTube in the first place. The luck is in the fact that I was born in a wealthy country, that I had supportive parents, that I that I chose to do computer science. All of those are lucky factors that before I got into YouTube, I had maybe some kind of control over. Some other parts, of course, you have no control over whatsoever, but some other parts with what you're deciding to study and whatnot. Those are things that you kind of control. But once you get into YouTube and once you, I guess from the very start of my YouTube journey, I knew that I needed to A, find my own audience, and B, I would need to consistently provide them with new things to watch so that they would put in their minds that, oh, there's a new project. Oh, it's 12:30. The reason that I've been putting out a video on 12:30 for 5 years now is that every time that the video comes out and you see your little notification for that, and it's roughly 12:30, you're gonna think, oh, that's the new projector video. I'm gonna watch, right? That's the end goal. Knowing all those things, it's the I think Dark Viper AU, the guy that I used to edit for a while, he explains it better. I don't want to just put his video on here, but he had a discussion, I believe, also about luck versus skill, and then in regards to how Mr. Beast was doing it. Essentially, Mr. Beast said that YouTube is 100% skill, which I agree with if you take out all of the factors that surround you in a way. And everything external to just the work that you're doing. There's no luck involved with making an edit. There's no luck involved with firing up my screen recording and capturing whatever I need to capture to make the tutorial and explaining stuff and all of that kind of stuff. That is all the skill part, right? That's everything that I've over time learned. And at the beginning I was terrible at it, and now I'm much better at it. I guess the luck factor, when you would say that it's more luck based, is if your first video hits big. So that if your first video if that's becomes a big video, then it's more of a luck factor, I would say. Anyway, little feedback session here. We have one more track to listen to, and then I think the tracks are now just going to drip feed in, so I might just leave this open and chat for a little bit, as opposed to actually trying to get into the production that I'm working on myself already. But we have NYN _ with It Hurts. Nice guitar loop. I like it so far. Vocals could be a little bit more present, I would say. Maybe that's because I don't speak whatever language this is. Japanese. think this is more of a pop music thing than a real dance track, so I'm gonna guide this or provide feedback more as a pop song than an actual like dance track. Guess it's Korean maybe, K-pop? It's Japanese, okay. Yeah, infrasound, I agree with that. If it's your, I guess not first, like I was saying, if it's the first video that you put on the channel, if it's the first video in general that you put on it, right? Assuming, yeah, it's also your first channel. Then it's luck. I think in terms of the vocal mix, it's actually pretty decent. It's just the fact that I don't know the language. It is a very loudly mastered track for a more poppy track. You can definitely tone down a little bit if you want to. Yeah, I'm not really a fan of the crunchiness that you get from such a loud master. So I would probably tone that down a little bit. Overall though, it's a good track. I like it. There's nice melodies in there. There's a nice flow throughout it. It's not going to be something that I would listen to normally. But overall, like quality-wise, it's very nice. I normally do hardstyle / raw style. Yeah, okay, that makes more sense. That makes it that then I get where you got the mastering ideas from. There, the crunch is kind of already in the sounds before you even go into the mastering stage. So adding a little bit extra crunch, you're not going to hear that. I appreciate it. Cool. Glad I could help. Just got back from Japan. Sad Tower Records no longer carries any side events and it's basically all J-pop now. J-pop is blowing up, isn't it? Like blowing up in the sense that it's getting more popular in the rest of the world. I get that, you know, J-pop in Japan is gonna be popular because that's where it's from. But I feel like it gets more and more into just like the more mainstream. Not so much mainstream like TV and mainstream media as in like a CNN or whatever big news network or television network or like Jimmy Fallon even, or those kind of like big talk shows. But the amount of like YouTubers nowadays that use like Japanese and Korean and just music and maybe even to a certain extent memes from other cultures. In the last 5 years, essentially since COVID, I feel like that has grown a lot. Which is good. I think that's a nice thing. I like that. Anyway, I do need to familiarize myself a little bit more with the track again, because I haven't listened to this in, I think... No, I've listened to this later. Yeah, I've worked on this more. But I'm gonna listen to it anyway. Do a little recording here. J and K-pop is a bit weird. It's funny how a different language is enough to differentiate and make it cooler than normal pop. Yeah, I guess for some people, that is an effect that they like. Personally, I don't really care about either normal pop nor J-pop, so I honestly, it's not something that I would have never. It's not something that I would personally ever listen to. But then again, I listen to this kind of stuff here. I mean, to a certain extent, I agree that they're fairly different, but they're still both pop. Music, it goes much deeper than just the pop stuff. Even this was just like a poppy thing with something singing on top of it. Of course, it was like Vocaloid and stuff like that. But if you compare, I don't know, Taylor Swift, J-pop, and the average Dark Side set, I've never seen a project lag the way that it's doing now for me. It goes chick, 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 chick. That it coming from overseas makes it that much special, at least that's my experience. I guess, to a certain extent, it is true that every culture has its own unique way of making music, and that is going to influence, I guess, the pop that they make. But if I listen to, for example, Italian, Dutch, and English pop differences, it's still the same formula for a track, right? You're never gonna have a pop track that is 10 minutes long. It's just not gonna happen. Yeah, they're gonna make a radio edit of it, which is then gonna be the 3 best minutes. And that's gonna be the version that everybody knows. That's just because radio don't play tracks that long. Yeah, so that is one way that a factor external to, I guess, the creativity of the artist influences the way that they make music. And one of the reasons why pop music, just like any other genre, by the way, right? Also, a lot of sidetrend sounds very, very similar to a lot of other sidetrends. But one of the reasons why pop sounds very similar to other pop is because of the time limits that traditionally came with radio. It's honestly strange that we haven't seen much variation away from that lately. Right, with now the main thing being streaming. Did you know that there are 2 singer-songwriters that write all American pop music too? No, that's not true. You're saying Dr. Martin and Max something else about from the top 40 since 2003 up until 2022, I believe. They're responsible for roughly 10% of the music that's there. Still very fucking impressive, but it's not the majority. I know this because this is an argument in the video that I really, really like by Tentacruel. That is actually a really good video. I should link that, so you guys have something to watch after the stream. This guy here.
Everybody here has
I think it was bunk, but it was a good story. It's still very impressive. Air Loomis, how are you doing? Welcome. Apocalypse Musical and Ben, welcome as well. Thanks for robbing my illusion. I'm sorry. There are just a few label executives that control the entire pop industry if you want your illusion back. Thank you, Air Loomis. I'm doing good as well. Just a bit of a chill stream here today. Oh no, I'm aware.
It won't hurt you.
I think I'm gonna let the feedback queue hopefully fill up with a bunch of track. We now have 2 of them. If we get like 2 more submissions, which will likely be by the end of this recording. And then we'll do another little feedback session here. Yeah, UMG is essentially responsible for the entire pop. Not entirely, because I believe that there's like a few labels that aren't part of it. I'm assuming any genre works, yes. I don't discriminate against genres. I'm not a genrist, if that's a word. I do often wonder though, with stuff like UMG, how much of it is actually true in that they're just, you know, considered assholes of the music industry, and how much is it that it's more that they are
It's once myself, where I saw myself, and I know this sounds weird because there's doing the seeing, explode in a cloud of post-it notes that then fell to the ground and spread out and I looked at it.
that they're more the fall guys and the PR phasing area for all of the bad stuff that the music industry has to do, and that there's a lot of good stuff happening as well. UMG are copyright striking people all over YouTube. I'm assuming that there's a video by Rick Beato where he talks about it. I'm assuming that UMG also has the rights to a lot of the music, even when they don't have a legit claim. Do you know how the copyright system works? Or disagreements in general? Like, of course they believe they have a claim, right? Because otherwise they wouldn't claim stuff. The idea of illegitimate claims is something that I frown upon a lot, because I know both sides of the coin. Like, I'm both a YouTuber, musician, person ripe to be exploited by the music industry, and I'm also a label owner. Fully aware fair use has nothing to do with most claims. 95% of the claims that people say are fair use have nothing to do with fair use. Fair use is a very, very narrow defense for copyright Not even, yeah, it's a defense against copyright infringement that can be applied in very, very narrow, specific cases. And fair use needs to be established in a court of law by a judge. Rick Beato is very well respected in the music industry. That doesn't mean he is right. I'm also very respected in the sidetrans industry. I'm also wrong a lot of times. Very often. And as a lawyer on a full-time retainer to fight various claims. I highly doubt that. Fighting a claim takes 30 seconds. Submitting accounting. Watch the video. You do realize that he is, of course, pushing a narrative in his video as well. Before you dismiss it out of hand. I'm not dismissing it out of hand, I'm doubting it based on my own experience. I also know about some other stuff that Rick Beato has done. And you say he's very respected, but that is not entirely the case. He has definitely had his moments where he has been the asshole. And there has been moments where he's just been wrong. He has like had fused with Anthony Fantano, other people as well. Okay, then the discussion is over. Fine. Just trying to have a productive discussion here on copyright, but cool. This stuff does get a lot louder than here, so that's something that I would need to fix later on. What I wanted to say is, it is in every YouTuber's best interest to say that whatever claim that they get on their channels, that it has to do with somebody else being in the wrong. Oh, it's a false claim, or they didn't respect my fair use, I had a license, but the automated systems of YouTube still fucked it up, and that kind of stuff. But if you go and look at most of those cases, most of the time, the people that hold the copyright were in the right. YouTube system, the narrative is that YouTube system is completely broken and that it is being exploited for years, and nobody is going to fix it because of, I don't know, the big label guys putting pressure on YouTube. But there's simply no evidence of that actually happening. That is just speculation that comes from people just hearing the narrative of the YouTuber side. And don't get me wrong, I would love for copyright to not have to exist and for intellectual property to be free of use for anybody under any circumstance. But one of the fundamental things that would need to have to change is that we would need to get rid of capitalism as a whole in order to achieve that, because if you want to live in this world nowadays, you have to make money, and that means that you have to take the things that you make and you have to somehow monetize that, and you cannot do that as well if other people are also able to take your creation and monetize it for themselves. Like, my solution to that whole problem would be saying, let's look at the core issue here, which is that we have decided that everything needs to be a competition, and that everything needs to be about, oh, I'm more productive than you, and I am better able to extract as much value out of society that I can hoard for myself. And I can use that to, I don't know, buy other companies that then hoard more value to me. And at the end of the day, I end up with billions and billions and billions of dollars in value if I'm one of the big guys. And then that, of course, disadvantages everybody else. Because it's not like they're creating that value, they're just extracting it from society. So if I use 10 seconds of music in a 20-minute video whilst talking about the guitar picking technique in the piece of the music being used, is it appropriate to take 100% revenue of the entire video? Yes, exactly. Because that is how the law works. That is what we've decided is the way that splits are taken. If I sample 5 seconds of a song and I use that to make a 100 or not 100, but a 10-minute song, then also I get into trouble, and I usually have to pay either in advance. I have to get a sampling agreement, which usually is a 50-50 split, but depending on how big the part is that you're sampling, it can go up to 100%. But also with replaying and covering and all of that kind of stuff, that all falls under the same category. It is using somebody else's intellectual property and including that in your own work. We're not talking about sampling. It's the exact same thing. You're using somebody else's intellectual property, a melody that they wrote, a guitar riff that they wrote, a drum solo that they wrote, whatever it is that they wrote, and you're using that for your own intellectual property, for your own commercial use. In that case, copyright law applies. Yes. And we have collectively decided that that means that it would, that's like either 100% of the sum if you are being caught after the fact, or usually a relatively large percentage of the totality of the work, right? The way that I can describe this, say that the sample that you're sampling takes, took the original artist, say, an hour to make, right? They had to, we haven't. What do you mean we haven't? Yes, we have. We have democratic elections, and the people that we voted into power decided on copyright laws, and that is what is written in the law. Yes, Ben, I know what fair use is, but fair use needs to be established in a court of law, and it is a defensive use. It only applies once you're already in the court of law. It only applies when you're standing in front of a judge and you're making your defense on why your use of copyright was warranted. Before the court of law, fair use may as well just not exist. And it's not the same as sampling. It is exactly the same as sampling. It is 100% the same. It is using somebody else's intellectual property in your own intellectual property for commercial purposes. 100% the same thing. Sampling, reusing a recording in a background music for a video, it's all under the guise of the law. It is all the same. What may be happening in this discussion is that you're talking from your own moral view on the world without, like, you're talking about what it's supposed to be, what it's how you believe the system should work, whereas I'm more interested in looking at how the system works now, at least in this point of the discussion. Because all of the things that we talked about up until this point, they all fall under copyright law. There isn't copyright law for music, copyright law for videos, copyright law for text, copyright law for company logos, all of that stuff. No, fair use is an established point of US law. I know, but it is only a valid defense in a system or in a court of law. It cannot be. For example, YouTube will never make a determination on fair use. It cannot do that by the law of fair use. It can only be established by a judge, whether something is fair use or not. Nor can Rick Beato just say, hey, this is fair use. What he can do is assume that he's going to win a court case based on fair use if it ever comes to that point. But he cannot say, oh, this is fair use, therefore it is okay, before even going to court. It has to be established by a judge, case by case basis, before So why is fair use a defense? It's exactly that. It's a defense in a court of law. It's not a defense. What you're essentially saying when people say it is fair use on YouTube is they say, if I were to go into a court of law and I was standing in front of a judge and there was a defendant, I believe I can convince the judge that my use would fall under fair use. That doesn't mean that from that moment that they establish that their use is fair use. It only means that in the future, if they were to get sued, they believe that they can win their court case depending on what the law of fair use says. Commentary, search engines, criticism, parody, news reporting, research, and scholarship. I know. I've read it. I've read case studies. Of course, I run a label. I work with copyright law like every week. The amount of cases that have actually been solved through fair use you can probably count them on 5 hands, maybe. Like, say that it's maximum 25. Big, strong cases. Right, in music there was no, because even stuff like Dark Horse lawsuit, the Ed Sheeran lawsuit, the Robin Thicke lawsuit, all of that fell out of fair use. I don't know of a single music-related case that used the fair use defense. Very few people have actually defended the right of fair use. One that I know of is H3H3. Which was also, the reason why that was fair use is because he transformed the content that he used in his video from a comedy sketch about picking up women into, I believe it was a comedy sketch, either a comedy sketch or a serious video about picking up women, into a commentary on this whole manosphere. This was even before the manosphere really was a thing. There was just this like cringy pickup artist guy, and he essentially made a commentary video about what the pickup artist guy was doing, as opposed to, recreating what he was doing. That is the only case that I know of where fair use actually prevailed. But you can look at stuff like the Prince photo, for example. I don't know if people know that case, where somebody took a picture of Prince and stylistically recreated it from scratch without using the original picture, so that it would be essentially I believe it's even like an 8-bit version of it or something like that. But even there, without any, so he didn't use the original photo in his creation of the recreation of the picture. He made like a stylized version of that picture, but he didn't use the original to create that. He just drew it from memory or something like that, right? Even that was considered not fair use because the idea was the same. They were both a picture. They were both a piece of visual art, and therefore one was a recreation of the other, and you couldn't argue that it's fair to use the original idea to create a market substitute for said idea. But his version was too close to the original. Yeah, it's not so much about like just resemblance and closeness. It's much more about a market analysis of what your use of the original work does to the value of the original work. In the sense that, say that you were making a certain kind of music that people liked a lot, and only you know how to do that. Say that you invented some kind of instrument, or you invented some kind of playing technique that only you could do. You have a lot of value because you corner 100% of the market of people interested in that specific playing technique, instrument, whatever it is that you use in your music that makes it special. So if somebody comes around and they make something very similar to you, it's not the similarity that is the problem. It's the fact that now, with that other people's work being out there, you have lost value within the market. Right? So that is the actual problem, right? Again, this boils back to you needing to make money out of your music. If we weren't in capitalism, you wouldn't need copyright, because you wouldn't have to worry about, oh, how much money does my music bring in, right? So yeah, then you wouldn't make music at all, because then no one would make a living from it. Well, it depends on how this other hypothetical society would work. So every time somebody releases a Psytrance track, Aster has a claim because there's more Psytrance music out there devaluing his music. That is one of the 4 aspects of what they look for, whether something falls under fair use or not. The other one is the nature of the use. As you mentioned, for example, educational use tends to be higher regarded when you get into a court of law. And that is because, simply put, most judges just care less for non-commercial educational stuff being copyrighted, or having copyright issues between them, versus to commercial products, for example. The other is the substantiality of the work used. So how big of the original work did you take, and for the piece that you wanted to make, for the art or for the intellectual property that you wanted to make, did you specifically need everything that you took from the original? This is a very, very important part. I believe this is it's going to depend from judge to judge, because everything is going to be based on interpretation of the law, right? And it's going to matter which judge gets to judge your case. But I believe one of the bigger factors of the 4 is usually how big of the work did you use, and specifically, did you need to use all of that original material in order to make your stuff? And by the way, no, it doesn't. If you're making your own music that is within the genre, you're by necessity devaluing all of that music in that genre, but that doesn't mean that you have a copyright claim yet. You have to actually infringe on somebody's intellectual property before that. Which socialist/communist economy had a booming music industry? Exactly none. Who is talking about socialism or communism? Hello, Jacko. How are you doing? Incomplete 6, welcome as well. How are you guys doing? I think it's time for us to get into more feedback here, because we have some tracks waiting. But I'm willing to pick up the discussion again right after, if you guys want to. We start off with Apocalypse Musicale. Amid the waves of memory where the weight of a violent past shatters, a resurgence blooms, pulsing like a heartbeat, transforming silence into a song of rebirth. Waves of memory. I was using it as a placeholder. What is the economic system you're proposing to get rid of capitalism for? I'm not proposing anything. I'm just simply stating that the need for copyright protection is a functionality of the existence of capitalism. Can I send a B-tape? Because that is the only thing I got out. Yeah, of course, you can send whatever you want. Very dark bass heavy mix. melodies feel very, very random. I don't have an issue with copyright as a system, I have an issue with the rapid ferocity at which large media conglomerates abuse it. And I believe most, or a lot of the abuse that you hear about is not like they are legally in the right to do what they're doing. And it's being presented as abuse by the person that is on the other side of it, who of course has a vested interest in painting the person that is doing the claiming as a bad party, so that they aren't the bad party. Gonna be that honest, feedback wise, I don't really like this track. Feels very random. This sound, for example, that's just completely out of sync with anything else on the track. And here that like pitching up melody that doesn't really feel like it fits with anything else. I wasn't proposing any economic system. I was just saying that the existence of that copyright law only exists because we have capitalism. And if you don't want copyright law, you would need to get rid of capitalism. Because within capitalism, you need to make money from your music in order to be able to do it full time. Sorry, Apocalypse Musicale, I think we talked a lot about your style before and your music before, but I don't like it. I'm gonna just be honest here, I don't know if you're still here even. But it feels, first of all, it feels very balanced towards the lower frequencies and it feels almost too warm. Second, there's not really any rhyme or reason to the things that are happening. I feel like, for example, that melody with the pitch bend is a really good example that just played, and it does, like, it's not like the pitch bend is leading into anything, right? There's just at some point a note that goes zzz. It's not really a message in a musical idea. I feel like the way that you're making music is you're kind of just saying, oh, this is a cool thing, I'm gonna put this cool thing in here. Oh, this is a cool thing, I'm going to put that cool thing in there. This is also a cool thing, I'm also going to put that cool thing in there. Without really looking at the totality of the track, so to say. Under which system would you not need money from to do it full time? A system not based on money, surely. That can't. If you can't obtain necessities of life from your profession, of what use is it? The whole point of new socio-economic systems is that you usually don't know how it works before you get into it. Like, most people had no idea what capitalism was like when we were still living under feudalism, where everybody was just told what work to do depending on how the king was feeling, right? You, farmer, I need more potatoes. You, this year, grow potatoes. That is the extent to which the economic system used to work back in the Middle Ages. Is you had the nobles, and they under them had the peasants, and they just told the peasants what kind of work they would need to do, and in return for that, they got very few basic necessities like a plot of land, a little house to live in, and the protection from the outside from these nobles. None of those peasants, not even the nobles, knew what it would be like living in today's economic system because they had never experienced it. And the same is going to be true with whatever is going to come after capitalism. Because also capitalism is going to go away at some point. Right? Just like everything we've had before it, there's a beginning to it and there's going to be an end to it as well. And at that point, we'll see what the next system is going to be. I really don't care what it is. The only statement that I wanted to make is that the necessity for copyright law is purely based on the economic system that we currently live in. That's everything that I wanted to say. I don't want to make any other judgments on other economic systems and all of that, because I can talk about that for, well, up until the end of time, really. Up until we get into one of those economic systems. But that's not what I really wanted to do here on the stream. The next system is the Matrix. I don't know what the next system is going to be, but it's likely going to have just as many problems as our current system, because with tribalism there were a lot of problems, mainly the lack of real way of creating a society. And then we got into feudalism, at least in Europe, where the main problem was a real lack of power, just like actual power. And what we then did is we decided to overthrow all of the kings at some point. And we said, okay, we're going to have this new system where instead of you just having power because God said that you were the king and therefore you have all of the power, and that's just something that we believe, what we're going to do is we're going to link power to money, right? And at that point, what we decided to do is we decided to, okay, we're going to make this big shift in how we're going to do basically trade, because that is all that economics is switching goods and services between people, exchanging goods and services between people. We decided that we were going to do that differently. And with the new version of capitalism, there's a whole new set of problems, in the sense that now it's not so much that you may be lacking power in and of itself, but you're lacking economic power, in the sense that it just shifted the problem backwards one step, in the sense that before there was a 99 percentile that was the peasants that were just working the fields and they had no power whatsoever and they were just listening to the kings. And now we have one extra step in between, in that we've put this whole system of money in between, but we have effectively ended up with the same system, in that the vast majority of people have essentially no power whatsoever over society as a whole, except a very few very rich people, and they tend to accumulate all of the power to themselves. And what is likely going to happen, that also in a social system, that same phenomenon is going to take place, because as human beings are, we just want more for ourselves all the time, every time, even if we have a fuck ton of stuff already. Like Elon Musk still wants more money, even though he has the most of everybody in the world. But that's just human nature. And we can likely have arguments on whether a collaborative system is possible over a competitive system. Some people are going to say that it's just completely impossible, and those are likely the people that would stay with, that say that we should stay within the capitalist system. But I also believe that a large part of those people, if you really dig down into their opinion, you're going to get to some dissatisfaction with capitalism as a whole. Elon's money can evaporate in 1 week. Yes, but he will still have the connections and the power that he has now, that he has obtained with that money. Elon Musk can snap his fingers right now, put his bank account at zero, and by the end of the day, he's going to be better off than 99% of the people that live in society. That is because he has the connections, he has the tools, which he has gained through the money that he had. It is because it's a self-cycling system, right? You say that you become rich, that you become wealthy, and you start hanging out in the circles of those people that are wealthy as well. They tend to kind of stick together. You're never gonna find a billionaire sitting on the bus. And good on him, he built the circle that surrounds him. I mean, yeah, for him personally, that is good for him, yes. But that doesn't mean that it's not, that there aren't any negative externalities to that. That there aren't any third parties that aren't suffering from that. Of course there are. He employs a lot of people. Okay, so does the United States government, but I don't see you becoming a socialist because of that. In fact, the United States government probably employs more people. No one said there aren't negative aspects to anything. Yeah, but I'm saying we should do more to limit those negative aspects, as opposed to just praising him for how good it is for him personally. Because the fact that he now has, I don't know how much he has, $200 billion, means that that money was extracted from society. And therefore, by necessity, somebody else had to give that to him. And therefore, by necessity of that, logically, somebody else is worse off because he is better off. That's the point of money. Elon Musk has made $200 billion without ever creating a single coin, without ever creating a single dollar bill or anything like that. He has only extracted value from society. He doesn't create value. He is not printing extra banknotes or anything like that. He is not, I don't know, adding extra value to something. Private companies create wealth, governments extract it. That is exactly the opposite. It is the government that produces the wealth. Printing money is not creation. It is. It is exactly that. Because money is the thing that you need as an intermediary for trade. While we're doing this, while we're having this discussion, I'm going to move on to the next track, which is by Incomplete 6, which is something I cannot pronounce, Volume 1 - Krura. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing this. Oh, this is 60 minutes long. You have everything backwards and upside down. I don't believe I do. I believe that the creation of wealth is being done by the governments, and that extraction and moving around of that wealth is done by private entities. I have never made wealth. You can start from 450. Are these vocals yours, by the way? Because it does say that you... Oh yeah, it does say that you got a copyright strike on this. As you can see down below here. Or at least that one other song has been detected in whatever this is. Are these multiple songs? What am I listening to? Is this like a compilation or something? Is this 7 songs? Yes, you have. You created sounds that people purchased with money that they earned. You created something. Money isn't real. It's a symbol, a placeholder for value. But isn't that Everyone? Yes, it's a beat tape. What do I do with a beat tape then? How do I get feedback on this? I think we differ on our definitions of valuable because I believe valuable to be an indication of how much you want something, and money in and of itself has value because of it. Do you understand how the Federal Reserve works? They just print fiat by injecting zeros in the government's bank account. That is absolutely not how it's done. The Federal Reserve actually prints money physically on banknotes. I've talked about this extensively with my father, who was a banker for almost 30 years. And we very much know that all of the money that the government uses and all of the money that the banks have need to be backed by something physical. It used to be that was only gold. They had something called the gold standard, but then they started going over their gold standard, and then the currency itself became the thing that was valuable. You know how much physical currency is around in the US? About $230 billion. Yes. That may be the case. But what are you trying to say? You know, $230 billion is still $230 billion. I don't get how this doesn't mean that the government isn't creating value here. All of the money is just numbers on a computer system. That is not true. It's debt. Most value in today's economy is debt. It has nothing to do. You cannot just. You really think that you can just walk into the Federal Reserve, open up a computer, and type in a bunch of zeros, and then magically more money is happening? If that were the case, the monetary system would collapse tomorrow because it's built on trust. That is not how it works. It's not just a number. It is backed by something. It is either backed by debt, which is a promise of future return of money, or on money itself. Backed by what? Yes, exactly. Backed by either money itself, so the physical currency that you're talking about, or by the promise of future deliverance of said currency, which is debt. That is nothing more than, hey, I give you this amount of money, and in the future, I want it back. You cannot back money with money. You back value with money. At the end of the day, even money is a promise. Yes, exactly. Like Ben says, even money is a promise. At the end of the day, if you really want to have fun with an argument like this, you just remove the money aspect entirely and focus purely on the trust factor, which is what it is, right? I trust that you give me $10 of value if I give you this $10 pound. And I expect to receive $10 of value in return. That is why I'm paying you $10. Whether that be $10 worth of bread, $10 worth of services, $10 worth of advice, whatever it may be, you tend to spend your money expecting something in return. What does $10 mean if we remove the concept of money? It's $10 worth of value. Something that you agree can be equal to something else so that it can be exchanged. Because you're not alone in a transaction. There's somebody opposing you in any transaction that you have. It is between two parties. So your money is just the intermediary that we use to indicate value of something. I said if you want to make the discussion fun, you leave out money. I did see what you do there. Yes, I did see that, and I do appreciate those. Nice little wordplays. I'm really fond of them. It's a representation of value. Exactly. And that's the reason why there used to be a time that we would use seashells or specific shaped rocks or other things. It's not like money is this thing that has like always been there. It's just the latest way that we try to achieve a system in which we can exchange something that requires an intermediary. So the reason why money exists is, say that you have two farmers, right? Let's design this. Let's draw this in a little document here. Hello? There. Let's say that you have a society that exists out of 3 people. We have a guy over here. We have a guy over here in the middle. I'm terrible at drawing this, but it's gonna be okay. And we're gonna have a guy here on the right. The reason why money exists is, say that this guy needs, I don't know, a shovel, right? So he requires a shovel, but this guy has a shovel. And this guy has, I don't know, some bread. Say this guy needs a shovel, but this guy doesn't need bread. Say that also, let's also assume that shovel and bread are equal of value, right? Both shovel is $5 and bread is $5 in this fictional society here. The only reason why money would need to exist is if this guy wants to have bread, but this guy doesn't want to have shovel. Because if this guy does not want to trade and this guy does, then they cannot make the trade, because you both need to agree for the trade in order for the trade to happen. So what we decided upon is, what we're going to do is we're going to create this item that is like a substitute. That, okay, right now you don't need bread or you don't need shovel, but maybe in the future you need bread or shovel. And in that case, you can just take this intermediary item, hold on for a little bit, and then once you get to the point where you need something else, where you need another good or another service, you take that intermediary and you give it away again. That's the point of money. Dude, please don't explain bartering to me like I'm 3 years old. I don't know, you just called me a child, so I figured that we were both children and we would both, I don't know, speak on each other's level, so to say. Because that is the way that you've been talking to me as well here. To say it like that. Okay. I'll move on to the next track for a little while we let this cool down a little bit. And this is a Bendigedic OneDrive link, stuck on the arrangement, so it ends rather abruptly. I'll see what I can do here. When have I spoken to you like you were a child? I don't know, the time you called me a child, the time you tried to say some of the most benign shit out there. Do you have any idea how fractional reserve banking works? Do you understand how the Federal Reserve works? They just print fiat money by injecting zeros in the government's bank account. That is trying to explain a concept that is also very, very easy to somebody who has a much bigger understanding of those concepts than you might think. Exactly. I think we should draw a line on this. I agree. I think we should listen to some music. No, we were talking about both speaking like the other person was a child. That is what we were talking about. And of course, asking a question is not the same as explaining something, but both things can be done as if the other person is a child. And that is what it is about. End of discussion. Let's finish it here. Listen to this music. Fucking hell, man. Sometimes I know you're a bit of a character, Infrashell, but sometimes I believe you do this purely to rile Bila. I'm sorry that I'm so riled up about this, but we need to stop it here, otherwise we're gonna get to a point where I just where it's never gonna be a fun discussion ever again. Feels like a fairly dry track, I would say. I like the stereo bass that you're doing, but even there, what would probably be cool is to remove the sub of this BC bass and then have like a bouncing 8-note sub in there. Something like that, just under it to give it a little bit more drive. And then the other thing, as I said, it's fairly dry of track, mainly the snare feels very dry. I feel like this is fairly late in the track to introduce a new vocal like that. 3 minutes in, like a poppy vocal. Also, most of the track is this fairly similar kick and snare pattern without any fills, with very little variation. So I think one of the things that you should do with the arrangement is not so much like extend it or make it longer or make it better, but focus more on small details that make certain elements of the arrangement stand out, as opposed to like lengthening it or seeing how you should be writing more for it, if that makes sense. there should be more detail in the stuff that is already there. Okay, I'm gonna take a quick break. I'll put on some other music. You guys just heard this track as well before, so I'm gonna put on... What can I put on that is... I guess this guy has been a while since I played it. Now every other Psytrance track that I've created with respect to this project looks so very, very small. But this is, I can promise you, this is a full track. This is a full 8-minute, as you can see, project. So I'm gonna play that, and then once I'm back, I'm gonna actually start working on this project and doing some production, hopefully.
With the Renaissance came a learned monk, Nicholas Copernicus. He proved mathematically that the Earth was not the center of the universe, but was merely one of many planets circling the glowing sun.
stand and say, arithmetic begins here, now.
Right. Got myself a new drink. Let me get something rendered for you as a peace offering back in a bit. No worries. I think I thought about this in the break. I think part of the reason why communicating, at least for us, about politics in this stream, the way that we're doing it is wrong, is that I have the advantage of being able to speak and not only therefore just get much more information out than anybody in the chat, but also I have the benefit that I can change the way that I deliver things, and I don't get that same like interpretation of language that you guys get for me, right? You can see my body language, the way that I say things, the way that I communicate information on top of just the words that I said, as opposed to in the chat where I just need to read the words and kind of have that mental voice speak them out in your head in a particular way, and sometimes you read it out in a way that the person writing it doesn't intend that way. Honestly, I think if you really want to have a productive discussion, the only real way to do that is face to face in a room. Another thing that is very important in that is that you're both um, have the same like confidence level in the language that you're speaking. Because I know that for me, debating in, for example, Italian is much harder than doing it in Dutch or English. Asymmetrical warfare. Yeah, it is kind of like that. But then again, uh, that is I guess the reason why you guys are here is because of what I'm saying, right? So it's not. I'm not seeing that as a purely bad thing. I just think that if you want to have a political discussion, the only real right way of doing that, where you're being actually productive and are attempting to change somebody else's mind on a topic, that can only really be done face to face in person, as opposed to the way that we're doing it, the way that that I'm speaking and I'm sometimes even just rambling and just saying things, whereas you guys have to actually spend time typing it out, and then I have to interpret it in the way that you meant it. All your life, I think there will be a concern on how to communicate better with people, based on my experience. Yeah, it even in a discussion, it's almost more important the way that you deliver information than the actual information that you deliver. I don't go into it with the intention of changing anyone's mind. I guess the way that I look at it is that is more of a debate, which I'm a little bit less a fan of. I usually like discussions more because the way that I see it, a discussion is something that you do trusting that the other guy has the same intention as you, in that your two minds trying to communicate each other's perspective on how best to solve a problem and learn from each other. And I think that second step is very, very important. And a debate doesn't include that second step. Usually I think of a debate as something that is also done in front of other people in the exact same way that we're kind of chatting here. In that I'm not only really trying to convince Infrashell here, but I'm also trying to convince the other people watching that of my opinion, and maybe Infrashell is doing the same thing. It's more of a spectacle, right? A debate. There's usually an audience there that is there to listen to the people that are talking and make up the mind based on what both of them are saying as like a third party. And in discussion, you don't really have that, so the way that you're communicating different things changes a lot. You'll never have in a debate, for example, somebody admit that they are wrong about something. Because that makes you look weak. That makes you look like you don't know what you're talking about, that your arguments are unsubstantiated, because you have to admit that you were wrong about something or that you don't know something. But in a discussion, it is very, very common to say to the other person, hey, this thing that you brought up or this question that you asked is something that I have no idea about. I think saying I don't try to convince is a bit hypocrite. I think as humans, we like when people think our ideas are true. Yeah, but on the other hand, when I do get what Infrashell is trying to say, in that changing my mind is not necessarily his like main priority for talking to me. He just wants to more speak his mind in, I guess, an how would you say, more in a debate kind of way, right? He wants to show his standpoints, and he just wants to bring that out to the world. Even here, there's another good example of the way that communication sometimes breaks down because you don't know how you have to interpret it what the other people are saying from the words that are written in the chat, as opposed to actually sitting in front of them and having them explain their point to you. Okay, we do have one more track here, so we'll do that now that we have the analyzers open. This is Shuma's Lids with a work in progress. And this work in progress is called Flonk 5. Interesting title here. You're responsible of what you say, not on how it's interpreted, I think. Yes. Unless you're trying to, as I said, convince somebody else of your ideas being true, then it matters much more how you're interpreted than the actual information that you communicate. I like it, but the kick and bass feels a little bit quiet for the intro. First of all, just turn it up a little bit. Check your kick and bass, and there's a little bit of, like this last oscillation doesn't really need to be there, so you can probably remove that in the resampling if you're doing that. And if not, then you should do that. Sound design so far. Ooh, there's a little bit of bassy stuff happening down there that you probably don't want in there. I don't like the open hat being panned to the left. A bit of a strange mixing decision there. I would like that dead center in the middle. That usually sounds better. There was a lot of rumble there at the beginning of that drop. Stereo stuff happening there. I like this. That's nice. Nice build up, nice groove here. And just looking at the waveform and how jumpy it is, maybe look into a little bit of compression and just in general try to keep it a little bit flatter. So that you have that nice equal loudness and that helps deliver the groove a little bit better. Also, if your kick is this loud and your bass line is this loud, then that's definitely a problem. Your kick should probably be the loudest element in the track, because that's the main thing that we're dancing to here. This track is by Shuma's Lids. Flonk 05 it's called. I like it. Musical idea-wise, I like it a lot. I think the mix can use a little bit of work. Another thing that I noticed is that I feel like the main elements sit a little bit too far back. And there was, at some point, there was this like continuous plug thingy going on that felt like it overpowered more of the main elements. I believe it's like somewhere here. Where did I hear the squelches here? there was a moment where I was hearing this really cool squelch pattern, and then there were the plugs that you were hearing already in this part. They were on top of it, but they were louder than the squelches. And I feel like these plugs are more of like a baseline layer, small kind of thing, and the squelches are really what makes that specific part of the track interesting, as opposed to the plug which plays through a larger part of the track, so to say. So I think that should be the priority of which elements are the main elements and how they should be processed should be a little bit better. In that sense, as I said, it's not just that the main elements are a little bit quiet, but they can also have a little bit more bite, a little bit more saturation, a little bit more maybe like distortion, a little bit more OTT compression. OTT is actually very, very powerful, and I tend to find myself using it on almost every sound that I put in. We can have a look on how true that is, but I believe that there's some OTT on most main elements that I have in my tracks. Is this a main thing? Not really, but I guess the grid synths are more. Does this not have an OTT? I was confident that I would use OTT a lot more. This guy? Yeah, OTT there. Not on this one, not on this one, not on this. I would confident that I would use it a lot more. Yeah. Okay. Scrap that comment about the OTT. Turns out that I don't use it whatsoever, apparently. That's strange. This is also still in like the work in progress stage, less production stage, but I like to get close with my production mixes and try to get the sound of the production mix right, in the sense that it's works from a technical aspect, works from a mixing aspect. I think I'm at the point where I could just master my productions and they should be okay. I just like having an extra mixing stage in there because you usually find things in there that in the production you're just never going to find. And I'm talking about like some sound somewhere having like a click in there, or sounds that once you add them to the track, you're like, hey, wait a second, I don't remember making that sound. And it turns out that you had this one sequence sitting in the production for over a year that you completely forgot about, and that maybe needs to do something else in the context of the track as a whole. By the way, if you have a little time, I advise you to try Zebralet 3 Beta 2. It's really good. I'm Googling that right now. Is that free? Easy Spectals. Yes. Products. Can I just get that from, sorry. Can I just get that from this webpage? Is it this guy? Ooh. That looks cool. No, it's the KVR site. Ooh, that looks even bigger. Yeah, I'll keep this open as a tab. And once the stream is over, I'm going to install that one because that looks interesting indeed. What I want to do today, though, is I want to focus a bit more on this part of the track here. I want to see if I can make the build-up work and then go into here in an interesting way and do some cool stuff with like one-shots and whatnot. Right now in the build-up, it's not really building in any way. Series 3, so you don't have to restart DAW anymore. I know that you don't have to like restart the DAW, but it's more that the... How long does it take to install? I guess it doesn't take too long. I'm usually just scared that I like show a folder or something that I shouldn't show. I say as I immediately show the downloads, and there's nothing really too serious in there. I'll try to do as much of it on the second monitor. Probably gonna pop up over here. Okay, and then once that is done, I just need to move my VST file to my actual VST3 folder. I hate that for the VST3 format, they made it so that basically nobody makes you set up a folder anymore. For VST installers, that is usually the case, that they tell you like, okay, this is the folder that I want to install into. But for VST3, they decided like, okay, that is too difficult and people don't have custom VST folders anyway, so we're just going to, I don't know, we're just going to put it in the default folder and hopefully people figure it out. But as you can see, I do have custom folders for both VST and VST3 plugins here, which I like. I really am glad that Ableton supports that. You can shape your own filters with guides and shape your own wavetables, and there's a lot of warp effects. That does sound interesting. You can never have enough warp effects. Like I was kind of, it's maybe asking a little bit too much here now, but I was hoping maybe Serum 2 would come with some more warp effects, like some of the things that we see also in Vital, like the random amplitudes, for example. I really like that. I use that all the time. Okay, so now in plugins. There we have it. Let's see what this is. It looks cool. One oscillator. We have an envelope here, some effects. 2 LFOs, another envelope here. This seems to be, is this the... This is the amplitude stuff and global settings all over here. Oscillator effects. This is what creates the different... Okay. And then you can modulate it over here, I guess. Oh, that's cool. You have like a wave designer in here as well. I want not that, but I want the sync here as well. And then on this guy, I would like to have the equivalent of a bend plus minus. There's some cool FM stuff happening already. I like this. Such a result in 10 seconds. Yeah, it's good, yeah. Ooh. Okay. So there's a lot more in here. Pre-listen. Yeah, this looks like something that I need to play with quite a bit more. Where is a filter on this guy? Does this have another filter on this? Mobile envelope, LFO, LFO. Curve, morph. FX1 curve guide. This looks like one of those guys where you need to read the manual. You can use curve filter to design it. Curve filter. Like I would want to put a bandpass on this tone that I have here. Curve geometry, wavetable. You can watch the Marula music video on it. I will, yeah. I will have a couple of tutorials on this to check out. But this looks like fun indeed. Still don't see an actual filter though. We have this massive envelope here, which is taking up most of it. What does that do? Right click on the wavetable and export it directly. Export wavetable. So that wavetable is exported. Okay, cool. So now I can turn this off and set it to like nothing. Right? So here we have a fresh guy. Can I now load what we just created? MSEC editor. This is the fun and not so fun part of creating or having a new synth. Init wavetable is a saw. Yes. I've exported the wavetable, but how do I re-import it now again so that I don't know, can add extra effects to it? Because I was hoping that I would be able to do that. Wavetable. This is all of the modulation on there. Modulated curve. Add empty curve. Duplicate space. Add empty curve. Oh, did it not save what I was doing with the oscillator effects as part of the wavetable then? Because I see you set curve filter using curve filter, which works, but I would need to have DFM sound already in there. The thing that I just exported, where do I re-import that again? Or is this because this is the light edition version, beta version, that it just doesn't have that? I'll look into that later. I guess what I could do is I could try to make a synth out of that. But I first want to hear what we need over here. First of all, we need a different impact because I don't like the sub sound on this guy. Way too dark. These don't really have impacts. They are just the, I guess they are the mid-range and high frequency impact, but not like this where it has like the rumble to it. I think I want this guy to rumble more on the mid-range as opposed to low frequencies. Pitch it up to semitones to get it here. Yeah, you can export Okay. Interesting, and that's a different approach. I want this guy to fade out a bit more, I guess. Let's see if we can do something at the end here with a transformer. I should keep this open if there's more people that submit for feedback, because technically that's still what I'm doing. And indeed, it's separate. I can't wait for Zebra. I have never worked with any of the UHEI plugins, but I know they are amazing. It's just that at some point you have so many tools that it's hard to see what you should get next and why you should get it. No? Another high noise sounding thing that This is where the one shots come back. I think I want something nice and glitchy, but with some FME textures in here to start. So I guess I'm gonna look for nice bubbly FM. I like that, but I would like this part to be in the center, if that's possible. Yeah. That's cool, I like that. Okay. This with a shaper box. Nope. Here. Some of these are really crazy. Okay, that's cool, and then give it 2 voices of unison. I'd like to add some 32 notes on the end of FM leads, especially on the end of the sequence. What I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to here have like a coming in sound, and then we'll have the main like one shot sound, the thing that's gonna do the impact and the transitioning happening over there, I guess. And I guess one of the things that I should do in that is add an EQ before the shaper box. I like it when there's like frequencies coming out of the shaper box that I want to keep, but I just want it to come in a bit more over time, especially in the high frequencies. Yeah, now there's a little bit of clicking coming from that glitchy patch, I guess, which is cool. It does have like a slight click at the end there. What if we just OTT this and use that final thing as the like main guy? And then utility to cut that. And a disperser in front of it to give it a little bit more of a zappy feeling right after here. And then I will need to remove lower frequencies as well that the OTT is reintroducing. You can hear there's that little bit of rubble mainly towards the end there, which I just want to remove. I think this can work. I don't really like the repetition that we get in the delay here on that sound. I never thought of it, but maybe the diffuser serum effects can work in place of the disperser. I think it's the exact same process, yes. It's just a different control set. Like the amount is the same as the stages, right? Because this is also, as you can see, like discrete amounts from 0 to here. There isn't anything in between this and this guy. So this is 0 all pass, this is 1 all pass filter, this is 2 all pass filters, this is 3. And that just goes up more and more and more. And then the pinch might be the same as the resonance in the diffuser, but I'm not entirely sure. In this case, the phase shift graph is displayed differently, so it's hard to tell exactly how they work and if they differ or not. What if now we go and pitch this around? headphones are starting to become uncomfortable. I'm thinking of... I was waiting for Infracell because he said he was sending another track. If you're still planning on doing that, I'll wait for you, and otherwise I'm gonna go into no cam and then turning on the speakers. I do plan on it, but Ableton is being a bitch. That happens from time to time. No worries, man. Yeah, I'm gonna go into no cam mode and then just produce a little bit so that I don't have to wear my headphones. Mainly it's the mic that is annoying, because with the monitors looping back and whatnot. Thank you guys for hanging out up until this point. And I hope you guys continue hanging out over here. Of course, I'll be in the text chat if you have any questions or whatever. But for now, this is going to be the end of the interactive part of the stream, so to say.
The best thing is to get into the state we could just be Doug Stanhope. And I
The Joe
push you onto the stage.
And to get me into that state, I have to know
Incorrect.
what time I should
Incorrect.
not be
No.
shit-faced like
no,
I was
no,
last night.
No.
Don't
Let's
take
go
50
200.
milligrams. Show starts now.
Let's do
fuck.
mushrooms.
Show starts now.
Let's
Oh,
do
fuck.
mushrooms. Let's
to psychedelic research.
Show starts now.
Let's do mushroom.
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 Show starts now.
mistake, Joe.
We need help, Joe.
It's going to be alright.
won't hurt you.
I had an experience once myself where I saw myself, and I know this sounds weird because who's doing the seeing, explode in a cloud of Post-it notes that then fell to the ground and spread out. And I looked at it and I said, that's me.
Feels like my cosmic sinuses have been opened up and unclogged after a long time of being dormant, and it feels great.